Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the SureFire Live show. I have a very special guest tonight with me, and she zoomed in right here at the last second, and I'm going to bring her on in just a minute. I wanted to give a chance for the audience to build, but also to talk about the recent NCSG show that a lot of us were at the in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun. It was a really fantastic event, very well done. Congratulations to everybody over at the NCSG that put that show on. I know it's a lot of work, and they did a great job with that. Very well attended. And I think it was, from all accounts, from the keynote speaker, that was Kenny Aronoff. I was on a plane. I did not get a chance to see him. He's one of my lifelong, I'm a drummer, and he was one of my lifelong idols. Quick story. I'm from Indiana. He's from Indiana. I played in a band with John Mellencamp's cousin, first cousin. At the same time, he was called Johnny Cougar at the time. So when Johnny Cougar came out, I was in his cousin's band from a neighboring town. And so Johnny Cougar, before he got his deal, was running around, and we were running around, and we'd run into each other. I got to say, at the time, Johnny Cougar was not a nice person. None of us liked him, but he got a record deal. I'm like, oh, he got a record deal. And then so that went on, and then he switched to John Cougar Mellencamp. And when he switched to John Cougar Mellencamp, that's when Kenny Aronoff joined his band. And man, it was history in the making. And they came out with Jack and Diane and Hurt So Good and all the songs. And it was really cool to be in that part of the country when they were taking off and kind of knowing them. But it's also one of those deals where you're like, oh, I was so close. I was right there, and it didn't happen. But at that point, Kenny Aronoff became a big idol for me, and because he was so good and he was so energetic, but he had just the cool grooves, and he was never considered one of the great technical drummers, but he was one of those drummers like Don Henley or like Ringo Starr or some of those guys that were really iconic in the way they played. And so they could just play to fit the music or to make the music better, not to be super technical. So anyway, I hate that I missed it. I heard it was a fantastic keynote, and I've seen the keynote on TV on YouTube before, but he talked, to us, and I was so glad he brought his drums and did that. So good job to NCSG for putting that on. Overall, great show. And I was part of the closing keynote, and that was a lot of fun. Had a good turnout, a lot of questions. And so overall, great thing. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I think those things are always key to our industry getting better and stronger. And it's a very giving time, and everybody learns a lot. So with that said, I'm going to bring on my guest, Miss Ellen Rohr. A lot of you know her. I've known her for a very long time. And every time I hear her speak, it's like she's just a breath of fresh air. She's so energetic and fun and knowledgeable. And with that, I want to bring her on, and let's talk tonight. So here she comes.
Yay!
Hey, how are you doing?
So what was Ken's message? Why is he on the speaker circuit?
So I missed it. I wasn't there, but it's overall basically staying, from what I understand, staying with it, staying with what you believe in, your passion, always getting better, hanging in through the hard times. And, because he's like almost 70 now, and he is still practices 8 hours a day. He still is just in phenomenal shape. He's still as energetic as ever. And I think he just blew everybody away with that much passion,
Oh, I love that. Okay, I will look him up. I'll go see the YouTube video.
Yeah, he's awesome. So this is a live show, Ellen. A lot of times we have comments. People will talk to us. I will ask you questions as they come in. We got our first. We got our first one. Brandy Biswell says, "Love Ellen."
Love you right back. Hello, Brandy.
Did you see Brandy? Oh, you weren't there. So Brandy and Jeremy, because you're supposed to dress up like your state, and they're Kansas, so she dressed up like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz.
Perfect.
It was she was great. Now Jeremy was a little questionable as Glinda the Good Witch.
Ah,
He was a
okay. So
big
that's under
pink.
review.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Brandy was spot on. I even went up to her and said, "Hey, you look awesome," and she did. She just killed it. So
So what did you wear? What was your costume?
I didn't. Well, nothing. I didn't.
Okay, so
Jeremy,
you were like the least valuable player
I
at
know.
this event.
In
What are
this
you
case,
doing?
I was. I do dress up sometimes,
I
but
like
this
costumes.
time I would have had to dress up like either a musician or a hot chicken. Yeah,
Hot
Nashville hot chicken.
chicken. That's right. That would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
guys, this is a two-way conversation. Ellen is a wealth of information. Please ask questions and engage. Makes the show so much better. And so let's just get started. So, Ellen, just for those who don't know you, give us a couple minute background on and why they should listen to you and who you are.
Well, I tell you, I've worked with all kinds of trades in my life, and I love chimney sweeps so much because of the romantic lore around the industry. I mean, you guys really have it going on with steal a button from a chimney sweep's jacket on your wedding, or for good luck, and then to have one at your wedding. And I
Yeah.
just think it's so romantic, and I've loved the experience I've had with chimney sweeps over the years. Special shout out to Bob Ferrari, who's really was the entry point, and you too. We met so many years ago, and I'm grateful that I got turned on to your great industry. But I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I always say that I'm the kind of person, if I were on that show Survivor, I wouldn't survive. I would die because I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to keep a roof over the head, or get wires from one place or the other, or plumb, or clean drains, or create weather like HVAC guys do to keep our homes safe and warm like chimney professionals do. But I married a plumber, and that's how I became connected to the trades. And since then, the things I love about my husband are the things I love about tradespeople. They're no nonsense. It either works or it doesn't. It's either plumb or it's not. There's just no BS or less BS, much less BS in the trades than there is elsewhere. And so that's how I kind of got turned on to the trades in the first place. But as a plumber's wife, typically, I quit my real job, I go to work for my husband, and we're not making any money, and we're fighting, and we hate each other, and it's just miserable. And I was so fortunate to find a great mentor. Frank Blau was my first great financial mentor, and I've had so many since. But he's the guy who taught me to charge more than it costs, to realize the worth of what you do, that these things are not God-given rights, they're services that require payment, and you deserve to make great money doing this honorable work. And so from that point, I've really made a career of just helping other mom pop shop owners get profitable, figure out the asset from the elbow, make money. And it's been such an exciting journey and great ride. And if you persevere, and if you last long enough, you can't help but learn something. And so, when you were talking about Ken, that resonated with me. My knowledge base is just this steady drip of information that I've learned from other people my whole life, and had the chance to either test it or watch it in action with clients. And I have come to some conclusions, and the conclusions are what I'm going to share. And one of them is that you talk to smart people like you and me, and you and I are going to learn something from each other today, which is always awesome. And you're willing to let go of what doesn't work and try something new, and then keep score and try again. And that kind of lather, rinse, repeat, or plan, execute, debrief, as I learned from a military person, is really what business is all about. So now I apply some of my knowledge to our Zoom Drain franchise. We're drain cleaners. We do a lot of what chimney sweeps do. We clean
just a different direction.
Instead of
ours going up, yours going down.
Mine's going down. Mine's going down. And even think about that. I mean, think how amazing this is. Like, fire has been around for thousands and thousands of years, and the problems associated with fire, venting that fire, have been around since the inception. And then trying to get water where it goes, and get waste away from people, or keep good water from bad water. These are trades that have been around for for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It just makes you so proud, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. And ideally some money.
And some money. And, it's not like, one of the things Frank Blau taught me was that the problem in the trades is a self-esteem problem. You'll over and over hear someone say, oh, I'm just a plumber. I'm just a chimney guy.
That's right.
And there's no just about it. These are the trades. And I think what's so exciting is that the pandemic, the last few years, people realizing the importance of an essential industry, man, we have become popular.
Yeah. And that's only going to, I think that's only going to increase. I mean, just when you look at all the changes in the world that are happening with AI and all the things that are happening, the people doing actual physical work is going to be more and more important and more and more needed. And it's going to push a lot of trades or a lot of people around, but I don't think it's going to change plumbers. I don't think it's going to change chimney sweeps. I don't think it's going to change electricians. There's still got to be people doing the work. And you've always had a passion for service businesses. And so talk about Zoom Drain. Why are you doing it? I know you have a background with Benjamin Franklin. Can you talk about how you landed here?
Well, yeah. And this may, raise your hand if you're someone who wants to grow to a multi-shop construct, or maybe you're thinking about franchising or selling your business, or, creating wealth out of your companies. That certainly is something that's been on my mind. Once upon a time when I was working with my husband, a $5 million service company you would fly across the country to go visit that guy. Yep. That was an iconic company. And now for some companies, that's like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's just, so what we've seen over the last few years is that some business owners who've applied those basics consistently and for enough time, it does take a little time for this to grow. Some folks do it faster than others, and there's some tricks to the trade there, but you can grow a really big business if you have systems and procedures in place to get enough calls, to grow and develop your technicians, and to equip them with the right vehicles and tools to rock and roll. So calls, texts, trucks every day is what we are obsessed with, and you will be too, right, Mark?
Yeah.
So anyway, as I learned, as I was learning this stuff, I did have I had an itch to scratch once upon a time. I was working with my husband, and I said, I want to grow a really big company. What do you want to do? And he says, I want to work all by myself. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. I'm being kind of silly about it now. At the time, it was traumatic.
Right.
So but here's something to consider. You don't have to work with your husband or your dad or your mom or your sister. You just don't have to. And if your dreams aren't aligned, my encouragement is that you do something different. Now that can seem, I even just feel the energy of that. Like that can be so scary.
Yeah.
But I know people who are waiting for their dad to die. And I'm like, he's 60 years old, man. You might be waiting on that.
There's a lot of truth in what you just said. I work with people that are waiting for somebody else to go on so they can live their dream. And in the meantime, they're 30, 35, 40, 45, and they're still like waiting.
Yeah. And it goes so fast. Like 10 minutes ago, I was 25.
Yeah.
Where did this time go? It just goes so fast. And I think you have the right, absolutely, maybe the responsibility to live your own life. And so we decided not to work together. We sold our company to our employees, the hot rod and yacht trucks from back in the day, 35 years ago, still run in Park City, Utah, and make us super proud. And those guys have had a good run with the business. But at that point, then my husband, Hot Rod, decided to do, his own gig and work by himself. And he did great. Part of me was even sure he was going to fail without me, how codependent you become. He was fine. And then I had this midlife crisis of what do I want to do and how do I do it? The house can get in the way. Mike Dyer, who is it?
Dyer, Tom,
not Wayne Dyer.
Oh, not that.
The guy, Mike Dooley. It's Mike Dooley.
Right.
Mike Dooley says, he says, don't worry about the dreaded hows. Don't worry about the dreaded hows. There's lots of ways to get where you want. More important is the what and the why, right? Simon Sinek, Start With Why, like that idea of what is it that you really, really want? Why do you want it? And if you're willing to like take moves in that direction, then some of the hows are going to be revealed. Like you don't have to have everything figured out. Sometimes the smartest of us try and figure out 10 moves down the chessboard, and then they become paralyzed.
Right.
So like, just, what is it that you want to do and why? Well, one of the things I wanted to do is see if I had the chops to run a big business. I just wanted to. I had like an itch to scratch.
I get the feeling. I know that.
Yeah. Like, am I capable? Could I do it? And I was doing presentations and I wrote books. And the biggest company I'd ever run was with my husband, a 4-truck outfit that did about $1 million in sales. And then I was doing a seminar, and I was approached after the seminar by Jim Abrams and John Young, who said, do you want to be the president of Benjamin Franklin Plumbing? And we want to be the country's largest home service plumbing company. And I just said yes.
Wow.
I just said yes, totally totally unqualified for that position. But it was aligned with what I wanted. And then I'm panicking. Like,
what did they see in you that said, hey, this is the right person to do this?
I think some of the things they saw in me weren't really there. and I think they thought I was going to be a magnet because I'd worked with other groups, that I was just going to magnetize all these people to come to our group, which I had a little success of that. But that really wasn't the most powerful role I played in that game. But it didn't matter because I still got there. And like every success story has edges to it, and every heartbreak has a silver lining. Like, this, like this too shall pass. And there's just life is complicated, and there will be these revealed edges to things. But what happened is that it did put me in a place to live that dream. Like, we grew really fast. So I worked with this group of venture capitalists, and we grew from 0 to 47 locations in under 2 years.
Wow.
And it was a wild ride, and I have the scars to show for it, and I made mistakes. But I'll tell you what I learned, and what I loved about the experience is I learned that franchising was a viable model. That the basic tenet of franchising is to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. That if you guys pool dollars, it's like how government's supposed to work. You pool dollars, and then the franchisor can use those dollars to get the systems and the brand and the training and the support together. Then you don't have to create all of that on your own. And you know how expensive that is.
Yeah. To
put the manuals in, to figure out what your brand's going to be,
expensive.
Protect it. Right. We spend a lot of time protecting our brand.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, So Benjamin Franklin turned me on to franchising. And then another thing I learned is just the power of the community. So one of our mutual friends is Howard Partridge, who's just fantastic. And he wrote a book called The Power of Community, which is worth reading. But there's something about being in on the beginning of something great that is really lovely. And you feel it with the Chimney Sweeps group, right? You've been there for a while, though you'll stay in it just for the community.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. And so like, there's these moments where you come together where you haven't screwed it up yet. And you come, and there's this like glow of the potential of what we could do together. And even the scrapes and the bruises that you catch along the way bond you to each other in a way that you will be stronger together, better together. Better together is one of our mantras at Zoom Drain, better together, because that's how you move faster. You have some humor and absurdity and pride in sharing that experience. So anyway, it was a great run. But at Benjamin Franklin, when we were just starting to break even and we're just getting a team together, I was going to be required to move to Sarasota. And at the time I was living in Missouri. My dad lived in the barn with my mom, and he was old, and he'd get, like, if we moved to Florida, he would have gotten lost. It was just one of those lead follower, get out of the way moments. And here's another thing. Like, when I come to a podcast, I like to just like kind of underline some things that I think are worth mentioning. And one is that once you know how to make money, you have a lot more courage.
Yeah.
Like literally, if I had to start all over again, if the bombs dropped and there were 2 people left on the earth, there was me and one other person, I would sell that person something.
I believe it. I
What's
know you
going
would.
to help each other? There's just like that, like once you get once you have that understanding about yourself, and I still give myself maybe a B as a salesperson, but I know how to do it. I know how to, help somebody out, as Howard says, let's help each other. And once you do that, then you can be greater and you can have a lot more control over your own destiny. So after I left Benjamin Franklin, I was so proud of the moment I had. I was so in love with those early franchisees, still am. Some of them are still really great friends of mine over the years. We just did something kind of magical together. And I've always taken a lot of pride in the trajectory, even though it was, lead, follow, get out of the way. And it was time for me to get out of the way. But then I wanted to do it again. And this time I wanted to be the owner. I wanted to grow slower. I think that I didn't need to go that fast, or like, I didn't want to go that fast. The second time around, I just thought, let's just get our legs around us. And so my buddy, Al Levy, you've met Al.
Yeah.
Okay. Al's
Briefly.
fantastic. Best operations guy ever. And Al and I were doing consulting. We didn't work together, but we worked with a lot of the same clients. So he did operations and sales and marketing, and I did the money. And so we'd refer each other a lot. And I said to him, we would get together and plan. I said to him, well, one of the things I really want to do is franchise again. And he said, well, one of the things I want to do is invest my money in a great idea. And I'm like, okay, this could work. Why don't we magnetize one of our friends, one of our consulting clients, and see if we can't, find someone we've already worked with that we could create as a model center. Yeah. And at that moment, while we were talking about it, this is how I remember it. Al tells a slightly different version, but I remember like Al's phone blowing up and it was Jim Crenity, and Jim was calling to say, hey, I want to franchise Zoom Drain. What do you think? Think we can do it? And it happened like that.
Wow.
It was complete kismet. But again, when you are clear on what you want and you're careful about who you talk to about it, like Al is a safe person for me to talk to because he wasn't going to pee in my punch bowl, right? As Dan Holland says. I love that expression. He wasn't going to tell me what a dumb idea it was or try and suck the life out of it or whatever. We just had we have that friendship and that trust. So it just came together like that. We didn't look at another candidate. We didn't say, well, let's talk. We just went, hey, that's so weird. We were just talking about it. Let's do it. And so we took really a couple of years to make sure that Jim's shop, Zoom Drain, was buttoned up and the manuals were written. There are like 100 man years in our manuals. Wow. That's how many people have worked on it for so long that we know a lot about drain cleaning. So we have these great manuals. We have a great brand. We worked on the logo, updated the logo, and got the package together as we started to sell franchises. And at first I sold to other friends, hey, come check out what I'm doing, or, other consulting clients, other friends who I'd known in the industry. And it took us 5 years to get to 15 franchise locations. And then last year we put on the gas and now we're at 40 franchises that we've sold. 42.
What
I just
is
realized.
Zoom Drain a full plumbing, or does it just have a specialty?
Just drain cleaning.
Just drain cleaning.
Drain cleaning. So, I think there's power in a niche.
Yeah.
And so we are specialists. Plumbers are the general practitioners and we are the specialists. So our whole truck is just devoted to drain cleaning. So if a plumber who's got 50,000 parts in their truck and maybe one cable machine in there somewhere, that technician may run out of steam or firepower and might refer the sticky jobs to us. And our number one lead source are plumbers who say they do drains, but really don't like to do drains and would rather we do the drains for them.
Wow.
So referral business
like
is how we go to business. So it's old school, it's drains, it's simple. It's, relationship based is very much what we do at Zoom Drain.
We franchised the chimney business. And
yes. Okay. So tell me about this.
Well, it was, to your point, very difficult to get it in the manual. And, we got up to 5 to 6 franchises, 5 franchises. And we just kind of ran out of what we love to do about it, because you kind of hit on it. The chimney business is so damn difficult and so widespread. Like, I couldn't really franchise, or I didn't feel like we could franchise just chimney sweeping, kind of like you did with drain cleaning. We kind of
Mhm.
got into all the repairs and the liners and the inspections, and it really got to be hard to scale. And chimney business is hard to scale. But out of that was the training system internally that we built for the franchisees, and that's what SureFire is. SureFire came out of that franchise model building, and we built that system, and we finally said, hey, I think people would rather buy our training than the franchise. And so we launched it as a different business, and it became SureFire, which was still part of the franchise experience, but part of the failure, but part of what grew out of it was that. And I would never tell somebody not to do it. I can just tell you what you just hit on was keeping it very simple was really the key to me that would make it be able to get legs and go.
Well, let me point out a couple things. One is I love that you adjusted, you
Yeah,
pivoted. Like
for
I
sure.
love sports because there's so many great analogies about that. But if like your game plan isn't working, you got to change it up. You got to try something else without having your ego attached to things. Your business is just like a car. Um, uh, you could have multiple cars. You could fix the car. You can abandon the car, but it's not you. That's the important thing. So many people get so wrapped up that if they make a mistake, it somehow makes them less of a human being. It's just a decision. Try something else and be willing to have a lighter touch on the reins, and adjust and adapt. There's no wrong in this stuff. There's just
So
another path. I
there's
really
never
love
really
that.
there's never really been a truly successful chimney franchising. There's been some that have gone out there, and never any that really took off. And our industry doesn't. I mean, when we did it, we were hated for franchising. We got so much hate, but I don't really care at all. But I'll tell you what is happening more often is branch offices. A lot of chimney guys are starting to add second locations. Can you talk to what you think about that versus the franchise model, or building where somebody else owns it and you help them?
Yeah, and another thing to say too about the drain clean, we do drain cleaning and jetting is our primary service.
Okay.
And that's what a new franchisee will get started with. Now, we learned this over the last few years, so we've adjusted. So just, the trucks are built to do jetting and clearing.
So
But
jetting is with water.
it's like a high pressure
Yeah.
washer.
Hmm.
And then the cables or the snakes,
Hmm.
and then cameras and locators. Those 4 tools we can do a lot of work with, and they're all on those big trucks, and those are money making machines. However, what'll happen is you're going to run into, just like you guys do, a broken pipe.
Right.
And now that pipe is unserviceable. We have standards like, the pipe slips like that or something. You got to dig it up or reline it or burst it or something. And so those are secondary services, and pumping is another secondary service. So what we realized is you got to get your feet under you with that first service, and then add the next and the next. But I do have cash flow and profitability challenges if somebody jumps into install too fast.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. Whoa, we're not, that's more complicated. There's more moving parts there. There's more ways a job can go wrong. It's seductive because the dollar amounts are bigger, just like with masonry, et cetera. But if you do the masonry wrong, you got to tear that out. We have the same situation. So
That's so
I
good.
feel you on that.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that if to that point, it kind of answers the question. If you're going to do it, start as simple as you can, whether it's a
Mhm.
branch office or a franchise. Keep it super simple in that new location.
Mhm.
To me, that's what I took from what you just said.
Yeah, and franchising and branch locations have a lot in common. What is franchising? Franchise is a little different in that you're going to be dealing with independent business owners who are going to make a lot of decisions, but they're also contributing money. There's that shared resource piece of it. It's
Mhm.
just a business construct, and it may or may not work for you, or it's not right or wrong. Just consider what your options are, because if you do it by yourself, it's going to cost more. right? There's going to, like, your franchisees are helping fund the growth of the franchisor. You know, you guys are hanging on to each other as you take off. If you do it by itself, it may cost you more. And I will share that for those of you who are fiercely independent, you got to have more money. You got to make more money, and that can be done. Or at some point you do get investors. And we got awesome investors. We work with these guys, men and women at MPK Equity. And I just feel like I won the lottery with these guys, not even for the money part, more for their smarts, their personalities, their connections.
Yeah,
I just feel like it's not all of our chips on the table. We've got the risk is spread out a little bit. There's some really great reasons why you might look at investors. How did I find my investor? I called my friends. Who did you use? Who did you sell your company to? Did you like it? What was the experience like? You're going to be working the network that you have at the
NCSG.
Okay, yeah, the sweep skills. It's easier. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah, those relationships are really where you're going to find the people you need that you don't have yet in your life.
We say that a lot. I mean, at these big events, almost all the answers are in that room somewhere. You just have to talk to enough people, ask the right questions, be considerate enough, and somebody's got the answer in there.
Yeah.
So so what would you think that a drain cleaning, like what you do in chimneys, would that be a good add-on service for chimney companies, like buying a franchise?
We call it a plus play. You know, you get to do what you want. If I were to do it, just because of my squirrel girl, you know, if I keep it simple, I will get distracted. I would do one after the other, remote locations, and just cookie cutter it.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, so a lot of chimney companies need additional services. So,
right.
like sometimes we slow down. We're very seasonal. Chimneys have some different, you know, things. And I'm just like, some companies add additional services. You know a lot about chimneys. You know a lot about what you do. Is there a match in there for somebody looking to add services? Would this be something that people should consider?
Yes. And the critical element is, one, does it line up with what you want? I know some people who are just very capable of having many businesses.
Right.
That's how they feel most comfortable. They've got like their own mutual fund of businesses going. Some are doing better than others. So the whole thing is kind of supporting, you know, if there's a lull in one, you know, the win in another can kind of balance it out. So yes, we call it, in our concept, we call it a plus play. And we do have an HVAC contractor, several plumbing contractors, and people who run other businesses. One guy has a call center and he added Zoom Drain. So there's people, a lot of real estate energy happening, you know, either as property managers or buying and selling real estate. So most franchisees have more than one business going in some way, shape, or form. But the key to doing it, if you're going to do multiple locations or if you're going to franchise and add another parallel, is who's in charge? Who's the in charge? And so when someone comes to me and says, I want to do this, but I really like the idea of being on the beach and just funding it, like, how much money am I going to need? And well, here's how much money you're going to need, maybe, and weight loss results may vary. But who's the in charge? Who's going to be looking these guys in the eyeballs every day? Who's going to we have call second trucks? So that person is who you want to find and develop.
So in that, do you mind if I put your contact information up for people?
No. Put ellen.rohr@zoomdrain.com. And if you're interested in Zoom, go to zoomdrainfranchise.com.
I got Zoom. I got zoomdrain.com.
That will get you there too. Yeah, that's fine.
I'll put your email if people are interested in what you're doing.
Okay. Yep. And then I'll steer you in the right direction and we can explore it. But that, you know, multiple locations, if you're someone who loves the idea of people getting better on your watch, mentoring, leading, developing those skills, that's what's required to go multi-shop. Gotcha. It's really, who's that person? You're going to need the manuals. You're going to need to systematically document how we're going to get calls, texts, and trucks around here every day. but you're also going to need someone who's got the, be able to identify and develop people who have fizz, energy. They're going to show up.
Yeah.
I don't know how to teach that. Just like,
You've got it. You can't teach it. You don't even know how not to have it.
I don't. And that's like, that is my superpower. I would
Yeah.
say I got a lot of energy. I always bring it. I'm not sucking
do.
life out
Every
of the
time.
room. Yeah. But you need someone who's we call it show up. You got to have energy. You got to show up. In fact, our values at Zoom are energy. We show up. Grit. We get things done. Responsibility. We own it. Performance. We keep score. And community. We're better together.
I love that.
Isn't that good?
Those are really
so that's like we just get stuff done. So I know, like with new franchisees, when they say what makes a good one, well, maybe if you share our values, it might mean you're a good fit for our community. So let's talk about that. But getting stuff done. Like one of my franchisees, surprise, he's been in business like a month, and his 2 trucks got their 2 catalytic converters stolen. And I'm like, that's a bummer. And he said, yeah, but I already called this guy. I've got this happening. I've got this happening. And this is by 8 a.m. And I'm like, that's what's going to make you great. That's just stuff happens every day. You don't throw your hands up. Yeah. You get stuff done. You show up, you grit it out. So
I've got a couple people. Ellen Rohr says, sup?
Oh, hi, Ellen.
And then Teresa Poor has, and she tagged her husband in. Her name is Royal, and she's they have I know they're really nice people, and she was talking about she put this up when you were talking about the husband and wife maybe having different dreams, different goals, and kind of doing, you got to do you got to figure out you and do you. But anyway, there's just a couple of little things.
To Teresa's point, Teresa, is that right?
Yeah.
Teresa's point, the best businesses I know are family businesses, and the worst businesses are family businesses.
That's a great point.
It really is. It's going to magnify that. If you and your husband, if you and Royal are on the same page, if you're willing to spend a half a day talking about the big stuff. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Are we aligned? Who's going to do what? How much money do we want to make? How much time should this take? You get yourself aligned. Now, those basic journalistic questions really form the basis of a business plan. So the 2 of you talk about it, you hammer it out, you write a few things down, and are we good? Are we on the same page? And here's another thing you can do. You can set a deadline, a due date, a D-Day. And I call D-Day decide day. Suppose you're not sure. You're burning out. You don't want to do this anymore. You thought you'd be further than this by now. You think maybe you want to collect rocks, or be a gardener, or start another business.
Pet cats.
You can always walk away from your business. My encouragement is that you don't walk away on a bad day. Don't make a decision when you're just in that crispy critter, I hate everybody moment. Just pause and put a date on the calendar, maybe 6 weeks from now or 6 months from now. And if you're working together, husband, wives, you say, okay, we'll do that 6 months from now, but here's the deal. Between now and the D-Day, we're not whining about it. We're not talking about whether or not we're going to quit. We are all in 100%, working this plan, putting it all on the field. Because if you keep going in every day and you're like, I'm having a good day, and your husband comes in and he's going, why are we doing this? Why? What's the point? And you're like, wait, what? Today? And then it flip-flops. And the next day you're ready to throw yourself off the cliff, and he's having the best day. You just can't keep doing that to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so accurate.
Just be on the field till the end of the game, and the game ends on D-Day, and then you take the day off and you go, is this reasonable progress in reasonable time, or should we cut it off? And make that decision on a designed day.
Okay.
And it's an honorable path to say, yep, don't want to do it anymore.
Do you do business consulting too? Because you're you have that fire about you, but I have never known you to really be that? I mean, I know you're author and things like that, but do you do that, or you
I
coach?
did, and you can make a lot of money doing it. Great, and you can say no, and you can work. But I wanted to build something bigger, and so that's when I was working with Al Levy, and we were helping other shops, and you and I worked on the phone over the
Yeah.
phone together.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
did some of it like that, and then I would go in person, and it was pricier to do that. But I wanted to build something that would last. I wanted to build something I owned.
yeah,
That I had a piece of
yeah.
the
You could, yeah,
action.
you could check. That's yours. You're
Yeah,
very,
and I have partners. In
yeah,
fact, I'm a minority partner, but I'm building some equity for me and my family. I wanted to have that as part of it. So that's when now I'm too busy. So like I love podcasts like this because I
yeah,
get to philosophize and share
yeah,
some of the things. And I get to
yeah.
talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, every time I bring you, I talk to you, I will listen to you. We work on something together. It's just always so refreshing and energizing. And so,
Well,
I
I
got another.
love your energy too. You're a guy you got grit. You're gonna go over, under, around, and through. You're gonna try stuff, and you also see, like me, maybe I like the absurdity of life. I
Yeah,
like the pirate ship aspects. The hard stuff is the good stuff.
I just posted this yesterday. I've been in this business 38 years as of this month.
Aw.
And but I still feel like I'm really kind of just getting going too. Like I posted my very first certification picture, and
Oh,
I'm a lot younger. I'm like 20 something, but and I had a mullet and clean shaven and 20 years younger. And a lot of people are like, I don't recognize that guy. I'm like, well, I don't recognize that guy either. He's a whole different animal, a whole different guy, period. But I still feel like I'm just getting going too. Like I still have energy to, we had big meetings today about some of the changes we're making and so the next level. What does it take, and I have a kindred spirit with you on that.
I
Diane
feel
Pillar,
like that. I feel like we're just getting started at Zoom. I feel like we're just getting our legs under us.
yeah.
Just
Uh,
wait. Just
and
5 years from now, a whole new thing. A family business needs to have business hours, and it needs to apply not to spouses, but to children. You've got to have some boundaries where I just don't want to talk about it anymore. I remember a time where I am like, bam, ba, bam, ba, bam, ba, bam, to my husband, and I follow him into our bedroom, and he gets in bed and he pulled the covers over his head. And I just thought, oh my God, this is no way to live.
yeah,
Isn't that
I
awful?
yeah, I know. I totally get it. I have to shut it off it has to be done. Don't call me. Don't talk. I give it everything I can during the work hours. And if I want to work on something, normally it's quiet and I'm just working on something on my computer. But let's not talk. Let's not get into it. I don't want to talk about it at all. I give it
Mhm,
everything I can, and then it's done.
mhm. And
Especially
you know,
now that it's now that it's
person
a mature business, I can do that. Now, early on in the building phase, I was 100 hours a week trying to get this thing built. But once I got and I could put that to the side and check that box and not continue to have this nightmare. But after I did that, then I could put the business to the side. I had to.
the way out is through. I think you do have to put in that time at the beginning and you'll miss it. Like that's the thing too. When friends of mine have sold their companies and I go like, gosh, what does it look like to reflect back on those early days? It's always with like nostalgia and love for the struggle and the, knowing everybody's name and, making sure that, you handle it and you got all that satisfaction and high fives and, the tough days. But that's worth remembering that way. I think even with at the beginning, you get to have an hour or two where you don't talk about it. I mean, if you were to die, your customers will call someone else.
Yeah. They'll move
You
right
are
on.
not that important.
They
It does
will.
not matter. I
They'll
mean,
move right
that
on.
is, my customers are going to sit there with a clogged drain because, one of our guys whom they loved didn't show. They're going to call somebody else because life goes on. And so like once you start to realize how replaceable you really are, it makes it easier for you to start letting someone else. And that comes down to like, how do you get that next location? We'll get the first location. Al Levy would say, if you want it to be lukewarm over there, make it red hot right here. So,
Yeah.
get it tight.
Yep.
I mean, someone who grew up through this is ideal scene, but someone who grew up through the channels might then be able to run that shop. That hasn't always worked in our experience. We've like made some bad decisions there, or just they were okay decisions at the time. It just didn't work out, you know. So then you have to adjust and figure it out.
I
But
like that concept, what you just said about if you want to get it go, this has got to be red hot. This is going to be
that's what Al
absolutely
says.
working. A lot of people try to jump too soon, and this isn't really that good. It's okay. Maybe they think adding another location will now make it good. And I agree. You got to have that thing just smoking.
And that's the point of like, can you have like, if your chimney business isn't smoking, adding Zoom Drain might leave you with 2 startup businesses, right? Like, so just yes. Or if you decide to move from just doing chimney sweeping to lining, like now, like just get one going. And then you can put it on autopilot or put someone else in charge as you get the next one. That's really, that's good counsel. I know you've been there.
When I start new businesses, the only reason I can start another business is because these other ones are really rolling. And they've been handed off for the most part, the daily. But basically, you're right. And all the businesses I have came from chimneys, and finally getting chimneys going. And then like you could apply those concepts to the next thing and get that going. And sometimes you got to come back to chimneys and fix it. And, you know, stuff doesn't stay fixed. But I enjoy that part of it. We had one of our guys who joins us, JJ's out in California. Sorry, I'm late, but some people work.
Not this one.
And then Ken Goodrich, who's the big HVAC.
Hi.
Well, this isn't Ken. I don't think it might be Ken.
It's a quote. Well, hi to Ken.
I think it's a quote, but if it's Ken, hey, gosh, welcome.
Every business is a family business.
And so, and then, or you can. So this, so he does barbecue detailing out in California. $1,000 a unit to barbecue to clean a barbecue. Wow, that's
so like power wash it, grease
like
it,
steam cleaning, and getting it all shiny and working again. It sounds like that's what JJ does. He's a chimney mason out there in California. So
I love
so
that.
tell me, so we've got about 15 more minutes. It's about an hour-long show. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
What's next for you? What's coming up?
Well, you know, as you were just, I thought you were going to say, what do we need to say? I was kind of like anticipating your question. So first, let me say this, and then I'll tell you what my big career plans are. Calls, texts, and trucks. Why? Because you want to make money. Let's never lose track of that. We started at the beginning. That was my motivation at the beginning. I wasn't making any money and it sucked. And so I'm like, okay, we got to figure this out. And once I figured out, oh, you charge more than it costs. There's no way to fix your balance sheet beyond getting sales minus expenses equals a really big number, which you can use to pay off your bills or your debt and create equity for you and your family. Like, it's so simple. Charge more than it costs, create a great profit. And now, how do you know if that's happening? Only if you keep score. So my encouragement always is, you can't, if you're a business owner, you have to be the financial manager. You can't say, oh, I just let my bookkeeper do it, or I don't pay that much attention, or I'm a technician. Then go be a technician. But if you're a business owner, your responsibility is the money. It's your stewardship. You got to know, you got to learn. I think on my website, ellenrohr.com, ELLENROHR.com, I give away a free copy of Where Did the Money Go? I think we have that up on the website. So, you know, it just teaches you what a balance sheet is, what a profit and loss is, so that you can, you know, keep score and make more money. So that's been a big part. Yeah, thanks. That's been a big part of my message, my career. And it's what I'm obsessed with my franchisees too. When I meet with them, we look at actual to budgeted. I just ride them. If I care about their money more than they do, we're going to have a problem.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the books you wrote, because I did talk about that in your lead up. You wrote
Where Did the Money Go? And how much did I charge?
Talk about those two things, if you don't. I know those are big topics. I know we could spend hours.
They're thin books, though. I just wrote those books because I was looking for that book. Like, I did not know. I graduated at the top of my class, University of San Diego, private Jesuit school in San Diego. And it was great. I learned a lot. a lot that I use every day, but I did not learn how to read and use financial reports. I didn't learn how to fix them if they were wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they would be. In school. They always assumed they were correct.
Right.
It's just so weird. And so like, it was like, how come I don't know this? And so as I figured it out with the help of these great mentors, I thought, is there just a little skinny book that tells you, like, shows you what the transactions are, breaks down double entry accounting. So I didn't find it. I put it together, and I'm very proud of that book. It helped me a lot to work through that process. And as I learned how that worked, I understood the accounting program. I was never going to be intimidated again. Even now with our investors, we have 23-page spreadsheets that we trot out, and oh my gosh, I can't. One of the things I'm not going to do as I develop my career is I don't like entering numbers in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I'm going to have someone else do it at my direction is where I'm going. Like,
so that book,
do that, and I'll look at that, and we'll make assumptions together. But
that book is Where Did the Money Go?
That's Where Did the Money Go? And, but even now, like now that I'm into big finance and working with investors and everything, it always comes down to profits and cash. Those are the two KPIs. They drive everything. And if you get that, it's again, like, you'll always be okay. You'll figure out this business if you're willing to learn that. And the other one, how much should I charge, came down to the, what Frank Blau taught me: add up all your costs of doing business, divide it by the number of widgets you might sell. And that in our industry is billable hours, and charge more than that. Now, what if my competition charges, any chimney swept for $39? Then figure out how to communicate the value of your services better than that. I don't like those kind of pricing techniques. They work. They obviously work because some really great companies use them. I don't like how it denigrates our trade. You wouldn't hear a plastic surgeon giving a deal on a $39 nose job.
Right.
They don't do it that way. They hear somebody else charges $5,000 and they think, great, I'll charge $6,000.
I remember every time you talked kind of in that world, you would go through this, and you would basically raise everybody's prices a lot into like a scary, like, I remember you would talk and you would kind of go through and help people figure out what they needed to charge. Yeah. And you'd freak everybody out almost every time.
I do it every day. I do it every day. There's a drinking game at Zoom Train. How long is it going to be before Ellen suggests somebody raises their prices? Just
right.
Some of it is like, I get that at some point you've got to,
sure.
You also, I'm not even saying you also have to manage your expenses and dig into everything, all of that. But you can't do it for $50 an hour or $150 an hour or $250 an hour. I've tried. You can't. You got to keep those prices going. Did you already poop your pants over?
I didn't. I would have if I hadn't listened to you.
Yeah, but like, do the math on it. You will find out, like, gosh, I wish I could charge less. I wish I could do this for $50 an hour. I so would.
The
math just doesn't work out. But okay, now what do you want to do next? You answer the question, and then I will.
Okay, I'll answer the question. Well, let me just say something. It's funny. You and I talking, and we get an idea, and then we switch subject. But my friend the other day, I was working with him to start he's going to be an electrician. He has been. He's starting his own business.
Lightning Wrangler.
And I went through the process, how much he needed to charge, billable hours, days he could work, blah, blah, blah. And he needed to charge at least about $375 an hour. Well, when you averaged what the electricians were charging, his area is $150, $250. I said, you need three. So he jumped right out. His very first job he bid, he went $325 an hour, $17,000 job. He had like $1,500 in materials. He's like, I would have never thought I was worth it till you told me where I needed to set the line, and he got it. So it's pretty cool. But
that's so good. Yeah, well, good for you.
Well, that honestly comes from you, years of listening to you about, how to do it and not be afraid of it. Is just, when you teach people stuff, it resonates a long time. And that's what I love about what we do, because you never know who's listening, what they're going to do with it, who they're going to teach. And, it has a long wavelength, but back to what I like scuba diving. I like motorcycle riding, and I like starting businesses. And so that's in my future. And I like helping people. I like coaching, and not coaching necessarily, but more like consulting. I don't
Mhm.
like a weekly, let's coach you kind of thing. I'd rather just try to help you and show you something and move on. I'm not a coach,
Yeah.
but that's in my future. I'm doing more and more of that, and I love it.
Good for you. Well, I tell my partner Jim, who is the CEO, I'm not angling for his job. I feel like I've gone as far up the Zoom food chain as president. I'm fine. What I'd like to do is someone to replace me. And but that's not yet. I mean, I still have a role to play. We're in the thick of it. We're a startup for sure. But my favorite parts, and the parts I want to do more of, and like spreadsheets less of, are I love riding along. I love visiting shops. I love the guys.
So you ride in the trucks.
I love it. I went on a ride along the other day, 3 of us. I'm sitting in the middle. I'm
On the
listening
bucket.
yeah, I didn't have a bucket. We did have a bench seat, but I've been on the bucket. And but every time I go on a ride along, I think I should do this once a week. It's why I do what I do. These are young men. I wish we had more women, so that's something I got to work on, who are making good money, doing honorable work, and I love them. And Harry Friedman, another one of my mentors, said at the end of the day, all he cares about is what his team member and his customer are saying to each other. Like, just that moment is what everything else should support.
Oh, that's good.
Isn't that good? Like
Yeah.
everything else, that's just like what's happening right there. And on a ride along, you can see it. And techs are usually doing one or two things that if they stop doing that, they'd probably do so much better. It's not 85 things. There's just a couple things. They don't have to be supermen. The guys who just kick it out of the park on our concept are not going to blow you away with how glamorous or smooth talking. None of that. They're just good people who pay attention right here and do a good job.
I love that. That is so right. I mean, especially as a business owner, and I'm watching some of these transactions happen or not happen. I'm like, what? Why did you say that? Why did that come to that? Or on the other side, wow, that was really good. But to your point, Alan Rush, who's listening, I mean, he rides along 200 days a year with
Oh,
people. He knows exactly what you're talking about.
that's where it's happening.
But
Yeah.
as a business owner, you've just inspired me to do more of that. Now, I'm already busy, but I'm going to have to do it. I don't ride along with the guys at all, and I need to
Okay,
really.
so what happens when you ride along? Suppose you ride along with one of your techs. Give me the name of one of the guys who works with you.
Bryson.
Bryson. Okay, so Bryson, you announced to Bryson, I'm going to ride along with you today. Whew. High alert. And then Bryson goes home at the end of the day, and someone's probably waiting at home for Bryson.
Yeah.
Okay. So whoever that is going to say, how was your day? And Bryson's going to say, Mark rode along with me today. It's going to be the first thing out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And what is that person going to say back to him?
Oh God, do you still have a job?
Yep. Are you in trouble?
Yeah.
What happened? Like, just think of that. Like, that's 100% like where we go, because it's so unusual that we would spend that much time with one of our guys. And just think of what you could do during that day. On the ride-alongs I've gone on, every single one, I have a better relationship with that person that has lasted 20 years.
Yep. I believe that.
I remember going on a ride along with a guy once, and he had a tie on. And I said, why the tie? And he said, well, it's a clip on. My boss likes the tie. And this is with Benjamin Franklin. And I just looked over at him and I grabbed the tie and I ripped it off. And I'm like, we're not doing that.
How do you do the ride along? Are you just there to meet them, talk to them? Like, what is your purpose on a ride along?
My purpose, because I'm not their boss. Now, this is different if you're their boss, but there's some parallels here. Do we have a few more minutes?
Oh, yeah, we're fine.
Okay. When you go on a ride along, we have a checklist. It's got a million things on it. Don't check all the boxes. You feel like, I shall check off everything. Like, don't make it a fail.
Right.
Make it a win. So we got the checklist and we go, okay, what are we supposed to do on this ride along? Got to make sure we have our booties. We have our booties. Like, I'm just going to set them up. We have it. Okay, what is the process here? I'm going to read it aloud and go through it. All right. And then I'll say, and you could do this, like, I'll make this as if you were the boss. because there's not a lot of difference. I'll show you. I'll show you some of the things. I'm not going to write you up today. Like,
You just tell them that.
I'm not, because I'm not your boss. And when we get back, what I'd like to do is debrief with your boss. Let me brag on you, talk to him about what our experience was. Fair enough. And if they say, well, will you go back and tell him? I said, don't tell me something you don't want me to tell your boss.
Yeah.
Just like, that's okay. Just like, don't do that. Then neither of us have to worry about it, because we're going to go back. We're going to talk about them.
Right.
So I'm not really there to try and create a psychological, I'm not a therapist in this moment. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, I'm going to ride along. And what I'll say is, let's go through this. I'm going to learn something. I'm not a technician, but I know that every great idea I've ever gotten has been from the field. So I'm going to learn something today. And if I see something that might help you, could I give you one suggestion? Would that be cool? And they're going to say yes. I'm not going to give them 15 things. I'm going to give them one thing.
I like that.
All right. So we set the expectation. Oh, you're going to love this. Okay. We set the expectation, and there's a process, and every sales process, Alan, you're going to agree with this. Every sales process is the same, and somebody's got their spin on it, but there's going to be some kind of get ready, feel good, open the call. Like, you're prepared, you're on time, you got the stuff with you, and then your opening line, how you doing?
Right.
And you give them your card, and you're off to the races. There's a little close rate in that first step. Do they let you in the house? Do they say, go away? You know what I'm saying? Then the next step is going to be some kind of needs assessment. Ask good questions and listen. We call it initiate the survey, so that we have a survey and you ask the questions, and then you get some information about the job. And then you're going to present solutions and prices from the price book, and you're going to shut the blank up.
Right.
You're going to ask for the sale and shut the blank up. And when they say yes, you're going to say, great, you've made a good decision. Here's what happens next. If they say no, what made you say no? And we deal with that.
Right.
Right. So you got to process there in these little close rate things. So when we get to the job, you don't take the checklist or anything in. You've been talking about it. You get to the job and you just watch. And because I'm a woman, it's such a sexist world. No one ever has asked me my opinion on anything on a job. You probably will get someone to turn to you, at which point I would say, Bryson is much better than me at this. I thought I'd tag along and learn something, but it's been a while since I've done any of this, and just turn it back to him. Nice. All right. So, because you will, as the statesman, you're going to get it. I never do.
Right. Gray hair.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going to be looking like you know what you're doing. And I'm going to be watching for things, and I don't know how to fix any of this stuff, but I tell you, over the years, I've come to learn this. If it smells bad, looks bad, or sounds bad, it's bad.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but I'm keeping that. I'm just observing. And I'll tell you another thing. And I've gone on almost 200 ride-alongs, which, as long as I've been doing this, is still not very many. Not enough.
Right.
But I have never experienced anybody trying to sell something that wasn't needed or wanted. I've never seen it. Now, I'm sure it happens, and you hear guys say that other people do it all the time. Never seen it.
Right.
Almost every time I've seen the customer underserved.
Okay. Yeah.
They miss stuff.
Yeah.
That smells bad. That looks bad. That whatever. They just don't do a complete job a lot. That'll happen a lot. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it's totally right. You've got a couple comments. You've got some fangirls on here.
Yay!
So people are loving you.
Girl.
I love her. And it's the
Damn.
first time I've heard her.
Oh,
another lady. Amen.
Thanks, Catherine. Amen, sister.
And then so you've got you're hitting on some great notes.
Okay, well we'll be here all night. Let me wrap up the ride along. So we go on the ride along, and maybe he makes a sale. If he gets a sale and we get to work, we go out to the truck. I'm gonna high five him. That's a W. It was really well done. Now, suppose he doesn't get the sale. Here's a really important thing, especially if you're riding along. You could find yourself at a point where there is peak willingness to do something different when you just blew it in front of the boss.
Right.
Okay. So this is where you might say, oh, that sucks. Sorry about that. May I give you one suggestion? And then maybe something you noticed. First step, you were nice, on time, looking good. How you doing? Really empathetic. And you were off to the races. Could you feel that light bulb between you get a little brighter? That I learned from Tom from Mid-State Supply. I love this. Did you feel that light bulb between you get a little warmer and brighter? That's good. Then she told you what the problem was, and you went right to fixing it. And you didn't ask her any questions. We skipped that whole survey thing. So how about on the next call, you use the survey or you ask 2 questions. Now, it doesn't matter what the task is. Here's the magic of this. It doesn't matter what the task is, but that's a really common task. Ellen will back up that very often a service tech will go straight to fixing without doing the diagnosis.
That's
okay.
Right.
You'll see that a lot. So you just say something like, okay, ask a couple of questions. What questions could you ask? We have a survey, just ask those. Or you might role play a little bit on the way over. What could you, how long have you lived in the house? That'd be good. How often do you light a fire? That's a great question. Okay, 2 questions. We got them. Good. So we go in the house. If that service tech attempts to change his behavior, to ask a question, even if it's poorly, even if it's awkward, he's coachable.
Okay.
Do you get that?
Yeah.
Because otherwise what you're going to get is, well, she just was price shopping, or he was just blah, blah, blah. You're going to get deflection and confusion. I just asked him to do something and he gave it a try. Even if he did it poorly, I'm stoked. This is a guy who could get better. Right. Ellen, are you loving that? Well, it could even be, you know what, just pause or pull on your ear when, you know, or another one is they never shut up and they don't ask for the sale, or they never shut up once they do.
Yeah.
And then they start discounting. Where'd that come from? Or talking, or just call us when you're ready. And you're like, we're right here. What are you doing? So there'll be something weird that happens there. And Al Levy used to say he would bite the inside of his lip until the customer talked.
Oh, right. He's just waiting.
So like a behavior, like if you practice that on the way, like if you get that much willingness, you're gold.
Wow.
You're gold. And suppose you go with Bryson and he does everything good enough, made the sale, made a friend. You don't have to give him anything but love.
Right.
Just like, you know what? I wish we'd recorded that.
Right.
He says, give me something. I don't know. Nothing. Just do that. Like, is it ever good enough for you?
That is good stuff.
Isn't that good stuff?
I can see that being really
from years and years and years of learning, of going to seminars, of watching people do it. Of every bit of that I learned from somebody else.
Yeah, and your passion for it, you can tell you really enjoy that. You're really there to help them and to get them to move to the next step so they can have a better life, right? And that gives you joy,
so much fun.
That was awesome. So that, I believe that's Alan. For some reason, his name. So it might have been
Alan. I just think he's so on the right track. He's so good.
Oh, he is. Yeah, he's he whenever he talks, he's a personal friend of mine, and I've heard him talk a ton of times, probably more than anybody else. Practically, I learn from him every time. And same with you. Whenever you talk, I always learn. And I'm glad this is being recorded because there's so much gold in what you say and how you do it that everybody wins when you.
You are an absolute rock star. Your industry looks up to you. You've really set the standard. You took chimney sweeping and the industry places it hadn't been before.
Well, I appreciate that. I had a lot of help.
That's it. My partner, I could not be me without my partner. My partner, Jim Cronetti, is a more introverted guy. He's friendly and kind and lovable and just a loyal, great friend. But he's a lot more, he would sit and focus and work on a computer he loves spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Right. But because of like those relationships, he allows me to be me.
Yeah.
I
think the key on all this is implementation of these good ideas. And again, I still use your Post-it note exercise. You showed it, 20 years ago at a thing. I still use it. Yeah, when you're figuring out a standard operating procedure, you showed a thing, and you may not even remember, but I use that thing. Like I still use a lot of the things you've talked about, and I guarantee you do the same thing. When you
Yeah.
learn something from somebody, you implement it as fast as you can to get that result. And just listening to you talk, I can tell you've been on a ton of ride-alongs. You've got that thing down. It's just second nature to you, and now you're in your zone. And it's
Yeah.
neat to work with somebody that's absolutely in their zone, and you embody that.
There's a book called Mastery by George Leonard, and I even pulled a quote from that book in one of my books. And he talks about this guy who was like a martial arts master in multiple disciplines, and the guy's dying, and he says, "I want to be buried in my white gi with my white belt, because I will be yet again a beginner."
Oh gosh.
Isn't that beautiful? And it's a
Oh,
much better quote than that, but that's how I feel like. Don't you feel like the more you learn, you just get knocked back to the basics, and it becomes new again, and you just get to try it again? And the people I know have sold their businesses for beaucoup de bucks. They walk on the beach for 10 minutes and then they start another
you got to
business.
get back in. That reminded me of a story of the death of a guy who was in HVAC. And he was a one truck operator his whole life, but he was really well respected by his peers. And when he died, this happened 2 years ago, he's one of my best friend's father. When he died, all of the other HVAC services in the small town drove to his funeral in their service trucks. And they pulled out front, and they lined up all their service trucks to respect him. And I thought that was one of the coolest things of respect I'd ever heard of from the service industry, how much they respected him, and to that point, being buried in your white belt.
White belt. Isn't that cool?
That is such a cool story. Well, thank you so much. You gave us total gold for 100 hour 10 minutes, and you are just so awesome.
Oh, I love this industry. I love you guys, and I love you, Mark. Thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you. I've put your information on there, guys. Ellen is an amazing person. If Zoom Drain is something that's interested to you, reach out to her. Ellen, I'm going to be leaning on you more. If you're going to do this stuff, if you'll let me tap into your knowledge and do this, you're going to hear from me quite often.
Well, I'll share it with my team too. So it gives me a chance. It gives me a chance to do it. So will you send me the link when you're ready to put it out there? Okay. And I'll broadcast it too. Okay. So thanks so much.
We got to,
and all the girls, all the girl power there. Yay.
There's a lot of girl power watching. I love that. I love that a lot of the women in the business are watching, and you've inspired them. And so thank you so much.
Very nice. It was fun. Thanks.
Have a good night. See ya. Gosh, guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I always enjoy speaking with her. She's such a wealth of knowledge and inspiration and excitement. I get excited talking to her, and I could tell from the comments that you did too. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you next week. See ya.